You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill would add first offense of the promotion of prostitution to the sex offender registry as a 10-year registration, and it would make any other violations of this crime a lifetime registration. And I move passage on third and final consideration.
Because a lot of times the prostitutes themselves are victims and sometimes forced into this. I just didn't want to add more burden on, even though I know it's against the law, they shouldn't be doing that. I just didn't want to put any more burden on those. Some places hapless women who are forced into some type of bad situation.
And let me tell you, this actually came from the focus groups that were done by the TBI on the human sex trafficking issues that we've been addressing. So this is actually where this came.
Does this apply to human trafficking only?
No, this is whoever is promoting prostitution, but it did come out of the human trafficking focus group, the study that TBI did.
Well, they'll be gone, and they'll be gone. This law will still be on the books. What I want to know is, if a person promotes themselves for prostitution, is that a violation of the Act?
Say that to me one more time, Representative. I didn't quite hear you.
If a person promotes themselves for prostitution, we already know that that's a violation of the law. Does that put them on the Violent Crime Act? Crime registry?
The intent of this bill is to put the people who are promoting prostitution as a pimp on the sex offender registry if they're convicted.
Well, just a few minutes ago, I went and got a list. And second offense promoting prostitution would put them on a register, equating that with rape, facilitating the commission of a sexual exploitation of a minor, sexual battery, statutory rape, incest. I'm concerned that something which is already illegal when done twice is being considered as a form of violence. Now, we know prostitution can range from one end to the other. On the one hand, there can be exploitation. That's already illegal. On the other hand, it can be between consenting adults. But it's still illegal. I have a problem listing it when it's not violent with those things that are violent.
Well,
I was wondering what the rationale is to list it with things that are violent if the act itself is not violent.
Representative Maggart.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. What I would say to your concern is that we put offenses on the registry as violent offenses when someone commits them for the second time. So what this is doing, if you violate this the first time, you are on the registry for 10 years. If you violate this again, if you pimp someone again, and you've already done it once, then you are on the registry as a violent offender, and that means you're on there for life. So that's what this is doing. It's putting that under that definition. So you're on the registry for life if you do it for the second time.
Well, I don't think anybody in this room would vote to legalize prostitution. Even the people here who are for Ron Paul probably wouldn't go that far. But if it's not a violent offense, I have a problem. Now, I don't know much about this industry. I do know that Matt Dillon had a friend that kind of engaged in it. Her name was Miss Kitty, I think. And I guess under this bill, Miss Kitty would end up being on a registry as a violent sex offender on Gunsmoke. And I guess Gunsmoke would end up being an adult-only show that's going to be taxed by another bill later. So I think this is beyond the pale. I know what you're trying to do, but I think that you're putting nonviolent offenses under a violent category. And so therefore, we're letting those people dictate how we treat the law. And that's my problem. I have a lot of respect for the sponsor. I just don't think it's written correctly. Thank you.
Representative Towns. Representative Towns.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, sponsor yield.
Yes, sir.
As was stated just a moment ago, I'm trying to understand it myself. Obviously, members would be totally against prostitution and the exploitation of children, the exploitation of women, and especially where there are violent circumstances. What I don't understand is the bill itself seems to really trivialize real sexual perverts. There's sexual perverts in this country and in this world. And there are people that consider themselves as pimps, madams, or whatever they are. But they have not had sex with these girls. They are usually utilizing these girls as commodities, but they have not violated the girls physically themselves. For instance, if you have a woman that's a madam and she is actually hiring her girls out, she has not violated the girl in terms of her physically perpetrating some kind of heinous sexual act on the girl. So how would she be placed on a sexual registry?
If you are promoting prostitution and you are convicted of that, you will be, for the first offense, you will be on the sex offender registry. And you need to remember that there is no other crime that exploits both adults and children as much as those who promote prostitution. And so I believe that a pimp can be as dangerous to a child as a rapist can. And so what we're talking about here is people who promote prostitution.
Well, that's against the law as we speak, is it not?
Yes, it is, and we are just putting it on the registry so the public knows who they are.
Well, what is the penalty for promoting prostitution today? What is it as we speak?
I do not know what the actual penalty is.
But you're sure there's a penalty for it?
Yes, it's against the law, but we want the public to know who the pimps are.
Well, what you want is not the pimps, because the people are not going to look at, if I go on the computer and I see sexual predator or sexual offender, it's not going to show him per se as a pimp. I'm going to think that's somebody in the neighborhood that's trying to molest my child, is what I would think, or molest young girls, is what I would think as a sexual predator.
That's what this is, yeah.
So to me, it's going to be aired, and it'll frighten me if someone in that, with that tagline is moving into a neighborhood where I'm living. I'm thinking that it's going to be somebody that's going to be molesting children or young girls. That's what comes to mind when I look at a sex offender. Somebody possibly raped somebody that's statutory rape or what have you. That's the image that I get when I look at a sex offender.
Well, again, this is about human sex trafficking, and I think that someone who traffics humans for the trade of sex is a sex offender, and that the public has a right to know who they are, and we let the public know those people who commit those types of offenses by putting them on the sex offender registry. So all we're doing here is putting people on the sex offender registry who promote prostitution.
Who promotes
That's
prostitution. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this turns out long term. 10 years, first time, second time.
They will be a violent offender, and they'll be on there for life.
They're going to be a violent offender.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no violence committed?
Well, we use the term violent sex offender to define different types of sex offenses. So this is our definition, and we have used that definition to determine when people do a crime, a sex crime, more than one time. So when you commit this crime more than once, you will be a violent sex offender, and you will be on there for life, so people know that you promote prostitution.
Well, I can't support it at all, because I think it's ill-worded. I think that we're trivializing the real sex offense that's really going on in this country, in this community. Even though this needs to be dealt with, this is not absolutely the best way of dealing with it. So I'm not going to support this at all.
When people are put on the sex offender list, does it list what their crime was?
Yes, sir.
So this would list on the sexual offender list that these people were promoting prostitution.
Correct.
Other people, if it's a violent sex act or offense or sexual abuse, that is listed on the sex offender list now.
Yes, it's
So
on there
people-
what you do.
Does this bill in any way affect those that would use the services of a prostitute, a John? I think it's how you. Does this include Johns?
No, sir, it does not.
Well, I guess I'm a little disappointed at that, and quite frankly, I think it should extend to. I think it should extend to those people, because make no mistake about it, prostitution is a victimization of women. And I hope maybe we can take another look at this next year, or the body can take another look at this next year, and maybe extend that, because I think those individuals that go out and participate in this activity as customers, I think they are every bit as guilty as the pimps and the other individuals that gain from these types of activities. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a question, and certainly I don't know a lot about this industry. I have to be with Cornell on that. But I'm wondering if we're talking about escort services, where you have someone that runs an escort service. These ladies are willingly doing this. Are we talking about the owner of an
We are
escort
talking about people who promote prostitution. That's what we're talking about.
So that would be defined as a pimp.
A pimp. And what we're also talking about, we're not just talking about women. We're talking about all adults, and most importantly, we're talking about people who do this to children.
Sure. And I wish I would be so much more comfortable if that was written into here, that we are talking about people who are exploiting children.
That is what this is about. This is about human sex trafficking, and it's about the promotion of prostitution.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just had one question as to the estimated number of people that will probably per year that will go on to the registry.
Representative, I do not know that number.
Let me thank you for bringing this piece of legislation. Just in the last 30 days, I sat in my barbershop last week and read in one of the major news magazines a complete article about 4 pages on the exploitation of children, young ladies in this country being forced, and we talked about some people not being violent. They were held there violently. They were beaten if they didn't do what they were told to do. I've seen a commentary on television in the last 30 days where 60 Minutes did a commentary on this, and the violence that existed and the force with beatings and forced drugs on young people. Thank you so much for bringing this piece of legislation.
I do have a question, and I'm going to support your bill, so that you know I'm going to vote for this bill. But I do want to know, is individuals that are in legitimate businesses and adult-oriented businesses, will this bill have an effect or create some kind of a slippery slope for those that, let's say, for instance, if there is a guy that manages an adult dance troupe, and one of the individuals in the adult dance troupe decides to prostitute themselves in the process while they're out performing, will the individual that is the manager or the promoter of this adult dance troupe fall under the bad side of this legislation, the side that will punish individuals that promote prostitution?
All I can tell you, Representative, is that if you promote prostitution, you will be on the first offense on the sex offender registry. That's all I can tell you. If you violate the law of promoting prostitution, you will find yourself on the sex offender registry, so the public will know who exploits others for profit.
Without objection, the motion to, okay, I'm sorry. Hereby declare it passed. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is tabled.